Click.co University. Do you screen track overseas teammates?
No, we don't screen track. Does anyone think that's good ever? I feel like it's always a negative thing. Like
Upwork does.
Yeah, so I guess the point is like where does screen tracking come from in this idea of like micromanaging? Like it comes from one, not trusting them. So like I don't know, like maybe you're not like giving them enough stuff to work on, so you think they're going to be like taking outside jobs, or like you don't have good systems in place to like track roughly what they're doing. Like you don't need to be screen tracking, but just like little check-ins here and there at the end of the day. It's just like, hey, what'd you work on today? And ideally just like little snippets of what they've worked on too, is all you really need. I think there is a problem of like left unchecked, editors will start to like waste a lot of time. So it is helpful to like every once in a while do a little audit, like see what they were working on, how long it took them. Maybe they were like editing too much at the end of the video, and now you gotta like hey, we're just wasting a lot of time, and bring it over here. But in terms of like making sure they're like on the clock, it makes no sense. Just look at the output.
I often say to get to your audit point. Okay, it's like, okay, maybe something's a little fishy. I have a suspicion that this person, are they working for me full time, whatever. To your audit point, I have this thing that I say, which is basically like, and I think it's amplified by remote work, but oftentimes you could have a video editor or a remote employee or teammate running an algorithm that, like, if you knew they were running it, you'd be like, don't do that. So I think one thing that we've had to do in the past is when we've had that suspicion, we're like, okay, on your next delivery, just give us a readout of like everything you did for this edit and how long it took. And sometimes when you get that, you find that points 6, 7, 8 were like optimizing for parts of the edit that are like at the end of the edit. And we'd be like, once you see that, we're like, don't do that. The end of the edit doesn't matter. And so it's just kind of like a miscommunication or mismanaged expectations, where the editor or the remote teammate thinks they should be doing something. And if you knew they were doing that, you'd be like, absolutely don't spend any time doing that.
Right. Yeah. So you don't want to be flying completely blind. I think especially anytime people are animating, they're gonna suck up a lot of time. Also, where it's helpful, luckily, like our personal editing teams are like 10 or so editors, so it's really easy to see like if one's just a lot slower than the rest. If you just have one person and you're not super familiar with video, so you're pretty much like unsure how long things should take, it's gonna be hard. But if you have a second editor, now suddenly you're benchmarking everything, and you're like, hey, this person's twice as fast as you. What's going on here? Do an audit, figure it out. Like maybe they're just slow in a certain area, or maybe, who knows, maybe they're like doing some outside work or just not working the right amount of time. Honestly, we haven't had that problem very much. It's mostly just like they're mismanaging their time with like
it's the algorithm.
It's the effective editing versus like beautiful editing. They're an artist. They want to make the most beautiful thing. You want to make the most effective thing. So you just have more constraints naturally. So you got to kind of like bring them over to them.
I got one more for you, which is we like to, if you do that audit, you can also take something to the limit. So let's say you are editing intro. You're having your editor edit incredible sizzle reel intros for a podcast, and you don't know how long that's supposed to take. Go to the editor and be like, okay, on this next one, show me a 2-hour intro edit. Like let's take it to that side of the spectrum, that limit. What does a 2-hour intro edit look like? And when you get that back, you might find like, okay, this is 80% of what I need. And the difference between the 2-hour intro edit and the 10-hour intro edit is maybe 8 hours of an editor just like super nitty gritty in the weeds, finagling with like sometimes like one transition or effect. And it's like, we don't need that. So I like that kind of audit, which is like, what would this look like if it were 1 hour? Or what would this look like if it were 50 hours if you're trying to go the other way?
You'd be like, hey, I know this is crazy. Like this is almost like a thought exercise experiment. Like this isn't what we're trying to do sustainably. It's just like, let's see what we can do if we have a strict deadline here.